let's get down and dirty.
Fell deeds awake.
Now for wrath, now for ruin, and the Red Dawn!
The Battle of Helm's Deep took 120 days to film, reaching 40 minutes in the extended edition, making it the longest and most complicated battle ever filmed.
Oh, I get it. Don't be hasty.
There were 20,000 extras used in the making, and even the rain was real, as it rained 90 nights during filmmaking. Which is pretty impressive. They had to make that establishing shot of falling rain using water cannons to fit the raining continuity we see later in battle. The Hornburg itself is a small stone fortress consisting of 2 walls protecting the outer and the inner courtyards. Protecting the outer courtyard are steep walls, a narrow causeway, and front gate. At the top is the burg's halls, and running perpendicular is the deeping wall, which protects the valley between fortress and mountain. This valley is known as Helm's Deep. Let's talk about what the deeping wall is actually protecting. In the books, the deeping wall protected the caves, where Rohan's women, children, and elderly hid during the battle, along with their food, their water source, and other provisions. Stuff that would be pretty important during a siege. I only mention this because this is why taking Helm's Deep is so important to Saruman. It basically traps them.
Me so hungry.
In the film, the caves seem to be established as part of the fortress, demonstrating carved stones and entranceway, which I later identified as being here, inside the burg, and indicated even more so when the orcs begin to batter down the gates of the Great Hall. The civilians in the cave hear this and begin to panic. Therefore, the only real estate this wall is protecting is the steep staircase that leads to the fortress's rear gate, which is pretty important. It's a possible escape route between Burg and Helm's Deep, and I'll get more into that in a minute. As for the enemy, well...
It is an army bred for a single purpose, to destroy the world of men.
And yeah, the orcs were heavily armored and were equipped with pikes, swords, crossbows, ladders, and the flames of Orthanc.
All right, shut up already. You established enough of the battlefield. Let's get into the action.
For the deeping wall itself, the archers were far too compact. They're bumping into each other before the battle even starts. Even worse, the overcrowdedness causes a domino effect, knocking those behind them off the wall when shot with crossbow fire. Yeah, they had to prepare for the ladders, but Gimli has the right idea.
70! 80! 90!
Watch out for those arrows, though, hero.
It would have made more sense to keep more forces grounded and rotate them from both sides as they become tired, slain, or run out of munitions. As a result, arming the wall so heavily left the fortress disproportionately prepared for this siege. As you can see at the main gate, they're using rocks and a few spears to defend against the turtling orc soldiers breaking down the gate. Completely inadequate for the task at hand. It would have been more effective to pour Eowyn's piping hot stew on them.
It isn't much, but it's hot.
Is there no other way?
In fact, boiling oil was pretty standard in castle defense. They probably didn't have oil, but boiling water or hot coals probably would have been enough to defend this gate. They could have even had the women maintaining the fires. Keep in mind what this main gate is protecting. The elves do offer some crossfire from the deeping wall staircase, but they quickly give up on this. Protecting the main gate should have been Theoden's highest priority because of what's inside it. But not only that, if the deeping wall was overtaken and the burg is about to be breached, they can still retreat into the caves where there's presumably tighter quarters. The orcs' numbers would then be bottlenecked and Rohan could fight less orcs at a time while the civilians have time to escape. But instead, the burg is effectively prepped defenseless for this assault.
These are Uruk-hai. Their armor is thick and their shields broad.
There was so much emphasis on the Uruk-hai armor, but it was poorly visualized. Yeah, it existed, but the arrows pierced right through plate armor over mail. While the possibility is highly debatable between historians, depending on the bow, the arrow, or the plate armor, this execution breaks some tension that was already established in the build-up. Why stress so much on armor if it can't even mitigate damage from an elbow? Then we get to the fires of Orthanc. Orcs load 2 explosives into the culvert, and Legolas is tasked with stopping the Orc Olympic torch runner. Legolas, being established to make perfect shots to bring down his enemy, can't bring down a naked berserker with 2.
Wait. You mean this guy? This guy here. This guy right here. This sharpshooter here.
Bring your pretty face to my eye.
For the sake of the red eye, come on.
The idea that this needed to be in the film is nonsensical anyways. There are dozens of orcs with torches already around. In fact, there's some with torches just outside the culvert when the bombs are planted. If one orc, or even all of them, casually tossing their torches into the culvert is a little anticlimactic, you could increase the stakes by having a torch relayed to the wall, where Legolas drops the orc carrying the magic torch, but another picks it up, and this happens again and again, but the overwhelming number of orcs are just too much for him to keep up with. At least it would be consistent within Legolas' capabilities. Also, why the hell is the grate of the culvert on the inside? One would want the grate keeping the enemy out of the culvert, eliminating any place for the enemy to hide and focus attacks trying to get through. One could even call this a great execution.
Move this man!
Once the wall was breached, the men and elves on the other side should have led a fighting retreat up the stairway of the Hornburg. Instead of pulling archers to higher walls, he keeps them on the ground within melee range. At this point, the Valley of Helm's Deep is lost. There's nothing to defend except the stairway. They did what they could to defend it, and they should cut their losses. His volley does little to halt the wave of Yerks crashing through the gaping hole, and Aragorn orders the charge to plug the gap long after they've gotten through. Because of the abrupt explosion, there would be no way to wedge a tampon in time. As you can see, the orcs even have time to set up a pike wall inside Helm's Deep. Not sure why he thought this was a good idea. His forces are outnumbered more than 33-1. Instead of regrouping through the rear gate to higher ground, the elves die arbitrarily.
Except Legolas.
But he had to save Gimli.
Yeah, he sent all the elves to slaughter because of this idiot. Gimli jumps off the wall, ass first in the pikeman. Oh, yeah, that's a true friend, buddy. Ignoring the fact he didn't get a rusty poker up his ass, he would have been well surrounded by the time Aragorn's charge got to him, with even more rushing in from behind. He landed about here. I guess Legolas does a thing that helps out in the middle of this. Wait a minute, isn't that his arm? Oh, now it's Aragorn's for some reason. Okay. Also, did anyone give a shit when Halbrand died? Well, apparently Aragorn did, because after that, he swan dives off the front of the deeping wall, alone, after he calls the retreat too late. I guess Halbrand did touch him on the shoulders once. He did not want that hug. That was an unconsensual hug.
Sexual harassment.
Anyways, my point is that he's completely screwed now. There's no way getting back inside through either the main gate or the breach that is inside the deeping wall. Oh look, he's back. Even Legolas gets his arrows back from earlier. And now he's over here. That was easy. Helm's Deep has but one weakness. Its front gate.
What can men do against such reckless hate?
Ignoring the fact Gimli is tossed like a steak sandwich.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
He and Aragorn intercept the siegers on the causeway, successfully buying the men some time to reinforce the gate. There's that elbow again. It actually frees both Aragorn and Gimli, and they're saved by a rope. Even accepting the weak armor and Legolas arriving just in the nick of time, their escape is a little implausible. Just because they're out of reach of their swords doesn't mean they're safe from danger. The orcs had crossbows at the front gate. Once the main gate was eventually battered down because of its poor defenses, both courtyards are taken. This is because the archway to the inner courtyard also did not have a gate. Placement of a barricade could have slowed down the orcs long enough for the archers on the walls to regroup in the inner courtyard and fight from another fortified position. The soldiers down below in the outer courtyard could then regroup in the caves. At that point, only the tallest ladders would have been useful on the fortress's towering walls, but the Uruk-hai forces would still be bottlenecked at the inner courtyard. Not only do they lose both courtyards, but they also abandon the caves. As mentioned before, this is where all their people are hiding and everything they need to survive during a siege.
Take it to the caves.
Which is sadly why I think the Hornburg and its main gate was so underdefended in this fight. You lose the front gate, you lose everything. This is likely why Theoden, my favorite character, felt so hopeless at the end.
So much death.
But it was all for naught because in a last-ditch effort, Aragorn and Theoden lead a double-filed cavalry charge from the center of the Hornburg to the end of the causeway with little to no resistance. Hell, if it was that easy, why didn't you lead with that?
I'm gonna pour one out for my homies.
These are some impressive beasts. It would be real unfortunate if the orcs wounded the horses and dismounted the riders. Sword, arrow, and pike are all effective weapons against stallions. Look right here. There's a perfect opening to cut these ponies' legs out, and this would have likely been the end of their charge. Instead, the plot-armored horses complete their charge and are met by Gandalf ex machina.
But aside from that, flanking the enemy with the cavalry with the sun in their eyes, that's damn smart. Just Theoden and Aragorn, they didn't have anything to do with it. As for the orcs, they seem to do everything correctly.
We have two flaws at once. Orcs moving too close and nobody shooting at them.
If anyone is curious why the orcs didn't try bombing the main gate, it's because it's possible they might have also destroyed the causeway. Something that Theoden should have done himself to protect the main gate. They also could have benefited greatly with some other siege equipment like catapults and trebuchets, but the ammo would have likely slowed down their march. I'm also a little confused why Rohan only had 300 soldiers. I know most of the men were banished to the east and spread thin, but did Theoden not have any soldiers in Helm's Deep already? It would have been a real tragedy had they arrived and the entire fortress had already been captured by Saruman.
Stay out of the forest! Keep away from the trees!
I think this line would have been better spoken by Gandalf. Éomer doesn't really have a reason to suspect the trees have awakened, but Gandalf certainly does, as he was just there.
A great power has been sleeping here for many long years.
Final count, 42.
42?
I don't know who was in charge of the math on this, but that's clearly more than 42.
That still only counts as one!
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the...
Excuse me.
Yes?
How do orcs know what a menu is?
How did you get this number? This is one of the most common and infuriating criticisms where people tickle the idea that Mordor is full of restaurants. The orcs function within an army. Within that army are duties, and most armies have cooks. Somebody has to have the duty of preparing meals and rations for these child soldiers. There may even be a daily or weekly menu of what's being prepared for the troops, much like a cafeteria schedule. Who knows? Friday through Sunday, maggoty bread. Monday, man flesh. It's not unrealistic that a systematic feed regiment be in place for orcs depending on their rank, status, and duties.
Man flesh Monday. That sounds glorious.
And let's not forget,
They were elves once.
Oh. How does Gimli know what a nervous system is? Did he take an anatomy class while he was down in the mines?
I imagine he learned this from his own fighting, hunting, and killing. You kill or dismember something and its nerves twitch, regardless if its body's still intact.
Just try this at home with a chicken.
Oh yeah, you make a good point there. Thanks for watching this video, and be a dear and give this a like. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. This creator works very hard, and he's an up-and-comer. So help dear old Dan out. Thanks.
I appreciate everyone that made it this far, and until next time, be critical, stay excellent.